The first thing I smelled was salt and pine, the scent of freedom. When I pulled up to the cabin, the wood was silvered by age, and the shingles hung on like memories refusing to die. The ocean stretched out beyond it, vast and unclaimed, a mirror to the storm that had been brewing inside me for years. The cabin sat quietly at the edge of the beach like a secret waiting to be discovered, and soon it would be the stage for my revenge. I didn't buy this cabin for its view. I bought it for what lay beneath the surface, both literally and legally. 2 months before, I'd been living in the city, boxing by glass towers and petty office politics. My father had just passed away, leaving behind a stack of old deeds and a letter addressed to me. Inside it, written in his tight cursive, was a single line that changed everything. They stole it from me. Take it back. Attached was a crumbling map of the coastline, our coastline, and a deed dated 1954. It showed ownership of a stretch of land nearly half a mile long, marked as private property of the Marin family. My father's name was on it, and right at the heart of it sat this old fishing cabin. For years, I'd heard rumors about Seabrick Shores, the so-called exclusive beach community that had sprung up around the area. Ocean view mansions, white fences, golf carts, and homeowners association meetings where they probably voted on what color the ocean should be that day. I didn't care much about them, until I realized they built all their fancy houses right on our land. So I did what any reasonable man with a grudge would do. I bought the last piece of it, the one they'd missed, in my father's name. And I waited. When I arrived that morning, I noticed eyes on me almost immediately. The HOA types, pastel polo shirts, mirrored sunglasses, the kind of smiles that looked like barbed wire. I could feel them measuring me, calculating whether I belonged here. I didn't, and that was the point. An older man in khakis came over first, clipboard in hand, a badge that read Harold, HOA President. His voice dripped with entitlement. "Excuse me, sir, can I ask what you're doing here?" I smiled, unlocking the rusty padlock on the cabin's door. "Just fixing up my property." He frowned. "This cabin's been abandoned for years. The HOA doesn't allow overnight stays without prior approval. You'll need to contact us before." "Before what?" I interrupted, looking him dead in the eye. "Before I stay in my own home." He blinked, thrown off for just a second. "Well, yes, technically, this entire stretch of beach is under HOA jurisdiction. We handle maintenance, access, and community security. You'll have to comply with our bylaws." I leaned against the doorframe. "You might want to double-check that. Harold." I spent the rest of the day clearing out dust, fixing windows, and letting the sea breeze do the rest. Inside, the cabin was a time capsule, old fishing rods, a cracked map of the coastline, and a faded photo of my father standing by the same window I was looking out of now. The ocean roared below, a steady rhythm of power and patience. By sunset, I heard engines. 2 golf carts pulled up, headlights slicing through the dusk. Out came Harold and 2 other HOA members, a woman in a pink visor and a younger guy who looked like he thought he was auditioning for Baywatch. "Sir," Harold began, "we received complaints. You can't just occupy abandoned property like this." "Complaints from who?" I asked. "The seagulls." Pink visor glared at me. "From homeowners. This is a private beach." I laughed, low and deliberate. "You're half right." That's when Harold made the mistake that sealed his fate. "We've already called the sheriff," he said. "You're trespassing." 10 minutes later, a patrol truck rolled up. The deputy, a tall man with a graying beard, stepped out and gave me a polite nod. "Evening. We got a report of an authorized occupancy. You got ID, sir?" I handed him my license and the cabin's deed, the official, stamped, counter-recognized document. He glanced at it, then back at the HOA trio, his brow furrowing. "This shows you own this property," he said slowly. "Correct," I replied. "And if you check the parcel map, you'll see the property line extends all the way down to the low tide mark." Harold scoffed. "That's impossible. The HOA owns." But the deputy cut him off. "Actually, according to this, your HOA might be sitting on his family's land." The look on Harold's face was priceless, like someone had told him the country club was out of Chardonnay. Over the next few days, things escalated quickly. First came the letters, thick envelopes with legal jargon about violations and unauthorized modifications. I stacked them unopened by the door. Then came the noise, leaf blowers at dawn, lights pointed at the cabin all night, and random safety inspections. They wanted me gone, but I wasn't leaving. Every hammer I swung, every nail I drove into that old wood was a promise to finish what my father started. I had already hired a surveyor, a quiet man named Lucas who didn't ask questions but loved uncovering old records. When he arrived, I showed him the deed and the map. He whistled low. "You realize this isn't just a cabin lot, right?" he said. "These documents show your family owns everything from here." He pointed down the shore, to the far jetty. "That's nearly half a mile of beachfront," I said, trying to keep my voice even. He nodded. "And if this holds up, the HOA's entire development is technically encroaching." The tide shifted right then, not in the ocean, but in me. Word must have spread because soon, every walk on the beach turned into a staring contest. Neighbors stopped mid-sentence when I passed by. Someone even spray-painted "Get Out" on the cabin's door. I didn't flinch. Instead, I sanded it off and replaced it with a wooden sign that read, "Private property, no trespassing. Owner enforces." The next morning, the sign was gone. By afternoon, I had installed cameras. That evening, while watching the sunset from the porch, I noticed movement by the dunes. Harold again, this time with another man in a suit. They were arguing quietly. The next day, I filed the paperwork. I didn't tell the HOA. I didn't warn them. I just watched as they went about their smug routines, watering their imported palm trees and complaining about that squatter in the cabin. They had no idea what was coming. When I received the county's acknowledgement letter a week later, I stood on the porch, letting the ocean wind tear it open for me. It confirmed what I already knew. The land was mine. All of it. And soon, the world and the HOA would know it too. But before I went to war, I wanted to know one thing. Why had my father never fought back? He'd known they stole it. He'd known they built their empire on lies. So why had he stayed silent all those years? That question echoed in my head as I watched the waves crash against the rocks, the sunset bleeding red across the water. Maybe, I thought, he'd been waiting for someone stubborn enough, angry enough, to finish the fight he couldn't. And if that someone had to be me, then so be it. But how far was I really willing to go to reclaim what was ours, and what would it cost me once I did? The ocean was calm the morning everything changed. Too calm, like it was holding its breath. I'd spent the night poring over files, drafting letters, and sipping coffee until the horizon started to glow. My father's words echoed through me with every wave that broke. They stole it from me. Take it back. So I did. By 9 a.m., I was sitting across from a county official named Denise Holland in a small, sun-bleached office downtown. Her desk was buried in maps, surveys, and property tax records. When she looked at the documents I handed her, the original deed, the certified survey, the township ordinance, she raised her eyebrows. "Well, Mr. Merrin," she said slowly, "it appears you have legal ownership of parcels B12 through B24. That includes the land under several of the Seabrick Shores homes, the clubhouse, and the private beach access road." I tried to hide my smile. "So, technically, they're the trespassers." She nodded. "Technically and legally. If you wanted to, you could demand removal of all unauthorized structures. But I assume you'll go through the courts." "Oh," I said, leaning forward, "I'll go through them." When I got back to the cabin, the air felt electric. The HOA had put up a temporary fence overnight, trying to block off the path to the beach. A laminated sign hung from it. "Private, HOA members only. Trespassers will be prosecuted." I tore it down. Harold came running from across the dunes, red-faced and sweating. "You can't do that," he shouted. "That's community property." "Funny," I said, waving the sign in his face. "The county says otherwise." He blinked, thrown off balance. "What are you talking about?" I handed him a copy of the certified survey and county letter, both stamped and signed. His eyes scanned the papers, his lips moving silently as he tried to process it. When he finally looked up, His face was pale. This can't be right. Oh, it's right, I said. You built your playground on Marin land. My land. Every beach chair, every tiki torch, every overpriced deck. All of it. He tried to laugh, but it came out brittle. You can't just take it all back. We have contracts, bylaws. And I have ownership, I interrupted. Your contracts mean nothing if they are built on stolen soil. He stepped closer, his voice low. You're making a mistake. Son, you'll never beat the HOA. We have lawyers, money, and time. I smiled. So do I. And one thing you don't. He frowned. What's that? Patience. The ocean taught me that. Over the next few weeks, the fight began, not in courtrooms at first, but in whispers, in letters, in the slow unraveling of a neighborhood that had never been told no. The HOA launched their counterattack. They filed complaints about noise disturbances, claimed I was operating a commercial entity without approval, even accused me of destroying protected dunes. Every claim fell flat, but the harassment didn't stop. They sent inspectors, private security, and even a drone that buzzed over my cabin until I shot it down with a slingshot and dropped it in the tide. Meanwhile, my lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Evelyn Graves, filed our lawsuit. The filing hit like a hurricane. Marin versus Seabrook Shores Homeowners Association. Claim, illegal occupation of private land, damages exceeding $2.3 million, and removal of all structures violating ownership boundaries. The moment the news broke, the HOA's perfect facade cracked. Homeowners started calling emergency meetings, their smiles replaced with panic. I'd see them huddled on their decks, whispering furiously, pointing toward my cabin like it was a haunted house. And every time I stepped outside, the same thought crossed my mind. They still think this is about money. It wasn't. This was about my father. 2 weeks later, I got a letter from an anonymous source. No return address, just my name scrawled across the envelope. Inside was a photocopy of an old document stamped confidential. It was a purchase agreement between a real estate firm in the county, dated 25 years ago. Attached was a note. Your father tried to stop them once. They threatened him. He backed down. Don't make the same mistake. The air went cold around me. My father hadn't just lost the land. He'd been pushed out. The developers who built Seabrook Shores had used fake surveys and political pressure to claim the beachfront, assuming no one would ever find out. And now, their empire was sitting on a ticking bomb. Me. I wasn't backing down. When the court date came, the courtroom was packed. Reporters, homeowners, county officials, everyone who had ever walked those golden sands thinking they owned a piece of paradise. Harold sat at the defense table, flanked by 2 lawyers in $1,000 suits. He looked smaller now, like a man whose crown had started to rust. Evelyn stood beside me, her tone sharp and measured as she laid out the case. The original deed, the chain of title, the survey results, all irrefutable. Then she dropped the final piece, the ordinance clause requiring restitution for an authorized construction. By law, she said, the HOA must either remove their structures or compensate Mr. Marin at fair market value, given the assessed worth of the affected properties, that totals approximately $15 million. A murmur swept through the courtroom. Cameras clicked. Harold's jaw clenched. When his turn came, his lawyers scrambled to claim good faith occupation, that they had no knowledge of prior ownership. But the judge wasn't buying it. I find it hard to believe, she said, that an entire association could operate for decades without verifying property boundaries. The gavel struck like thunder. Preliminary ruling in favor of the plaintiff. A full audit of property lines will proceed immediately. The storm that followed wasn't on the ocean. It was in the HOA. Within a week, news stations swarmed the neighborhood. Beach community built on stolen land flashed across screens. Homeowners started bickering among themselves. Some offered me buyouts. Others sent threats. One woman even begged me not to demolish a vacation home, claiming she had memories there. I told her my family did too. They just didn't have the luxury of keeping theirs. Then came the final blow. The county surveyors confirmed what I'd suspected. The HOA's entire beachfront property, homes, clubhouse, even the pier, all sat on Marin land. And since the association had continued to operate despite being notified, they were now liable for back rent and damages. When I stepped outside that morning, the beach was quiet, eerily so. No kids playing, no laughter, just the sound of waves reclaiming the shore. Harold approached one last time. He looked years older, his pride washed out to sea. "You destroyed this community," he said bitterly. "For what? Revenge?" I looked past him, toward the horizon where my father used to fish. "No," I said softly, "for truth." He shook his head. "You think you've won, but what do you really have now?" I smiled faintly. "Peace, and the deed to your beach." Weeks later, as demolition crews began tearing down parts of the illegal structures, I sat on the cabin porch, watching them like sentinels of justice. Evelyn had negotiated the settlement. Most homeowners opted to pay restitution instead of relocating, which meant I'd soon be one of the wealthiest landowners in the county. But that wasn't the victory that mattered. The real victory was quieter, a whisper carried on the wind, my father's voice saying, "You did it." Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that this story wasn't just about one man's revenge. It was about something bigger, about how easily people forget that land remembers. You can build walls and fences and bylaws, but the earth keeps its own secrets. It waits for the tide to turn, and when it does, it takes back everything. One evening, after the last of the construction trucks had gone, I walked barefoot along the beach. The sand was cool beneath my feet. I could almost see my father standing where the waves kissed the shore, fishing rod in hand, smiling like he used to. I stopped near the old wooden post where his name had been carved years ago, half faded but still there. I traced it with my fingers and whispered, "It's ours again." The wind carried the words out to sea. I didn't rebuild the beach. I didn't pave it over or sell it off. I left it wild, the way it was meant to be, untouched, untamed, a reminder that some things can't be owned, only respected. Months passed, and life settled into rhythm again. I started renting out small cabins to artists and travelers, people who loved the ocean for what it was, not for what it could be sold as. I called it Shore, and for the first time in years, it felt like home. One afternoon, I got a letter from Harold. No threats, no anger, just one line, written in shaky pen. "You were right. The ocean taught me patience too." I smiled and folded it away, because in the end, revenge hadn't destroyed me. It had set me free. But I still wonder sometimes, if the tide could speak, whose side would it take? The ones who built the walls, or the one who tore them down?